The Nuphy Kick75 is the world's first mechanical keyboard that you can switch from a low profile to a high one. Today we're going to take a look at exactly how you would go about doing that, as well as many of the finer details that make this keyboard truly remarkable. Let's start by looking at its delightful retro gaming aesthetic. Nuphy's design language never misses the mark, and the Kick75 is the best example yet. Straight from the unboxing, you get a range of retro gaming stickers inspired by the Odyssey console, which also came out around 1975, which is a nice little Easter egg. And many of the characters and icons found on the sticker set can also be located somewhere on the keyboard itself. This concept runs right through the keyboard, from the pixelated 75 LED light cap to the keycaps themselves, which have been dialed up from Nuphy's usual pastel colorway to something that looks a little bit more primary, Bauhaus, a little bit more vibrant, that really brings back that nostalgia for when you were a child. Those bold color options are especially important on the Kick75 because it comes with a transparent plastic case, and the RGB lights underneath are really impressive and intricate, so when they shine through, you want to make sure you've got something that can compete with it. This is especially true in low profile mode, where you can get some really beautiful effects beaming through from underneath those keycaps. Even the dial on the upper right hand corner of the keyboard borrows from gaming iconography and comes in either an X for the low profile mode or an O for the high profile mode. The coolest thing about that dial though is that using Nuphy's software, you'll be able to set it to do different actions depending on what program you're using. So it could be really cool to do something like zoom in on a Photoshop canvas or scroll through a timeline on Final Cut. At the time of recording, I'm not sure this has actually been released, so I haven't tested it yet, but I'm really excited to give it a go when that launches. But here's the thing, Nuphy have already set such a high bar with their low profile keyboards in the past, with the Air 75 V2 being one of my personal favourite keyboards. So I wanted to know, going into the Kick75, whether trying to do both low profile and high profile on the same keyboard, they could really pull either off, or whether it would kind of get lost somewhere between the two. While it may not be as sleek and portable as the Air 75, it definitely feels very compact and comfortable to type on. My keyboard came out with the brown nano switches, and I'd say they are a pretty vanilla flavour of keyboard. They keep a very inconspicuous profile, they're not too noisy, and they don't take too much effort to type on. They're very accurate, and I've really had a great experience typing for long periods of time on them. Nuphy say they've taken quite a lot of time on this keyboard to reduce the noise and provide a distraction-free experience, and I'd have to say they are successful in that respect. The advantage of being a bit bigger and bulkier than the Air 75 is that you now get a slightly more spacious keyboard layout, which resembles more of a traditional TKL. You've got a nice little gap between the arrows and the enter key, and also between the number pad and the function row. Mispressing the enter, delete and backspace buttons is a regular gripe with people who use the Air series keyboards, so I think this is a really nice choice if that is something that bothers you. The plastic casing does not feel as premium as that cool aluminium when you sit down to type on the Air 75, and you won't be able to fit this into a folio case like you can with that series. The Kick75 does sit at just the right height to work with all of Nuphy's wrist rests though, and they've even delivered a specially built one just for this keyboard. It's made with a kind of faux leather that feels really comfortable when you set your wrists on it, and it works impeccably well even if you've got the keyboard in the high profile mode. So let's talk about the high profile mode, and more importantly, how you would actually go about converting the low profile to the high profile. While this dual profile capability is impressive in its own right, it's important to know that it's not a simple case of flipping a switch and turning into high profile. You will have to take this apart with a screwdriver and do a little bit of tweaking in order to get it into the high profile mode. There are a few little cables that you need to pull out from different areas of the motherboard, and one ribbon cable that can be a bit of a challenge if you're not used to working with them. Then it's a case of just putting in all of your high profile switches and keycaps and screwing it all back together again. I don't actually have the switches or keycap sets that come with this keyboard, so I ended up using some mint switches also from Nuphy and a set of keycaps that came with the Gen 80 keyboard. Because these keycaps are very similar colours to like retro Game Boy devices though, it still retains that retro aesthetic in my opinion, and I think it looks pretty cool. One thing I struggled with here was that I think I may have disrupted the spacebar stabilizer as I was converting it to high profile, and that means that the spacebar doesn't really sit very well on the Switch. It's a little bit wobbly. In the end, I found some little silicone socks that I was able to stuff onto the top of the stabilizers and connect them to the spacebar, and that means that I'm now able to use it with relatively little problem. I spoke to Nuphy about this, and it definitely seems like it's my error as I've been putting together the keyboard into high profile mode, but it just goes to show that you will get the most out of this keyboard if you are willing to tinker a bit and take a few risks in terms of putting new things together. The majority of parts within it are going to be open sourced, so you'll actually be able to 3D print your own designs and modifications and build really what you like out of this keyboard. Now that it's finally in high profile mode though, I've really been enjoying using it, and the typing experience is completely different compared to the low profile mode. It really just feels like you're using a regular high profile keyboard. I'm a real fan of these mint switches. I think they sound and look great, especially underneath that light purple of the keycap set, and they're really nice to type on as well. You can kind of get through a long document really easily without applying too much force as you're typing. Here's a quick sound test to help you decide which version to go with. The dual profile design of this keyboard is really innovative, and I appreciate what Nuphy are doing here, bringing new experiences to the keyboard market and also packaging them in a delightful way that evokes so many memories from your childhood. This is a great option if you're tempted to try out a low profile keyboard but don't want to commit to it entirely in case you don't like the experience, because you can always just upgrade it to the high profile version whenever you please. Just know that that process does take a bit of time and effort to actually achieve. So in my case, for example, because I've already got the Kick75, I'll probably just leave this in the high profile mode and use it for lightweight gaming and copywriting. At the same time, if you already know that you like low profile keyboards and you want to have something with a really cool retro gaming aesthetic, then this is the one for you. Whichever version you go with, they are actually a little bit less expensive than a lot of the other keyboards that Nuphy have put out. If you spend over $100 on this keyboard, you can use my code to get $10 off, and you can find a link in my description where I may get a bit of a kickback if you do go and get it, but that supports the channel. And there is a 1-year warranty, which is pretty nice. If you want to check out some of the other keyboards that Nuphy have got to offer, then I'll link a couple of them here. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in a bit.